Luddites vs. Machines, a big story about progress, fear, and resistance. How it all started. The Industrial Revolution kicks off England in the 1700s, was where the world started changing fast. The Industrial Revolution, kicking off around the 1760s, flipped everything upside down. For centuries, people worked with their hands weaving, sewing, grinding grain. Then bam, machines showed up. Think James Hargreaves' spinning jenny, James Watt's steam engine, Edmund Cartwright's power loom. These inventions promised faster, cheaper production. But imagine you're a weaver back then. You've spent your life perfecting your craft, proud that your cloth sells at the market. Suddenly, a machine comes along and does your job 100 times faster. You're out of work, and the factory owner's investing in metal instead of paying you. That stings, right? That's where the Luddites came from, regular folks saying, "No way, we're not letting this future happen." Workers' lives, why machines became the enemy. To get why the Luddites were so mad, you've got to see what life was like for workers. The 18th and early 19th centuries weren't some rosy picture of green fields and cute villages. Cities swelled, factories belched smoke, and people worked themselves to the bone. A typical day. 14 to 16 hours, no breaks, no weekends, no mercy. If you got sick or slowed down, you were out, replaced by the next desperate soul. Pay was a joke. Historians say a worker in the 1800s might earn 15 to 20 shillings a week, while a loaf of bread could cost a shilling or more, especially in lean years. Feeding a family of 5 was a struggle. And then there were the kids. 5 or 6-year-olds crawling under machines, picking up scraps, or hauling heavy loads. The noise, the dust, the danger. Hundreds of kids died in factories every year, according to old British records. Machines made it worse. Before, weavers or knitters could work from home, their own bosses, in what's called the cottage industry. But factories changed that. Machines churned out goods faster and cheaper, and factory owners didn't care who got left behind. The Luddites saw this as unfair. They weren't totally against progress, they just didn't want it stomping all over their lives. Who were the Luddites, and where'd Ned Ludd come from? The Luddites weren't some secret club with a rule book. They were everyday people, weavers, knitters, craftspeople screwed over by machines. They teamed up on the fly, no fancy hierarchy. To rally themselves, they cooked up a story about Ned Ludd. Legend has it Ned was a guy from Leicestershire who, in 1779, busted into a workshop and smashed some stocking frames. Was he real? Historians still argue about it. But to the Luddites, he was a hero. They wrote letters in his name, threatening factory owners and calling folks to action. One letter from Nottingham's archives reads, "We, Ned Ludd's army, will come by night and break your machines if you don't give us work." It was their way of shouting, "We're not going down without a fight." The first riots, from Hargreaves to Nottingham, the machine breaking started before the Luddites even had a name. In 1768, weavers raided James Hargreaves' place. His spinning jenny could do the work of several people, and that ticked them off. They trashed everything and sent Hargreaves packing to another town. The seed was planted. Things really took off in the early 1800s. In 1811, Nottingham became ground zero. Luddites smashed dozens of spinning machines there. Why Nottingham? It was a textile hub, and machines hit local craftspeople hard. Over the next 2 years, from 1811 to 1813, they wrecked over 1,000 machines across England, Lancashire, Yorkshire, Cheshire. They'd sneak in at night, masked up, swinging hammers and axes. Sometimes they'd burn whole factories down. But it wasn't just machines they hated. They went after soldiers guarding the factories, officials backing the owners, and merchants selling machine-made stuff. This was a full-on war, not just against tech, but against a system crushing them. The government strikes back. Deportation to death. England's leaders weren't about to let this slide. In 1812, Parliament passed a law, wreck a machine, and you're off to Australia's labor colonies for up to 14 years. Picture it, ripped from home, stuck on a ship, sent to toil on the other side of the world till you drop. Harsh, right? But the Luddites kept at it. So, the government upped the anti-death penalty. In 1813, they hanged 17 Luddites in Yorkshire. Public executions, meant to scare others off. Historians say crowds watched, but instead of fear, plenty felt rage. The Luddites became martyrs, and their cause lived on. The economic angle, machines versus People, let's break down why machines flipped everything. Economically, the Industrial Revolution was a shift from handwork to mechanized production. Machines meant more goods for less cash. One of Cartwright's looms could replace a dozen weavers' Watt steam engine juiced up entire factories. Profits soared for owners, and buyers got cheaper stuff. For workers, though, disaster. Economists call it technological unemployment, machines kicking people out of jobs. In 19th century England, there were no safety nets, no welfare, no pensions. Lose your job, and you're done. The Luddites watched their crafts die and tried to hit the brakes. They didn't see that progress can't be stopped, just adapted to. Flip the coin, and machines made England rich. By the mid-1800s, it was the workshop of the world, shipping textiles, coal, and iron everywhere. GDP climbed, cities boomed, population grew. But that wealth came from the sweat and blood of the working class. The Luddites were the first to yell, "Progress shouldn't cost us everything." Trade unions, a new fight after the Luddites got crushed. Workers found another way. By the mid-19th century, trade unions, or trade unions, as they were called, sprang up in England. They pushed for shorter hours, better pay, and no child labor. Unlike the Luddites, they didn't smash machines, they negotiated with bosses and lawmakers. Slower, but just as vital. By the late 1800s, the workday dropped to 10 hours, then 8. Kids under 9 got banned from factories. It took time, and the Luddites, without knowing it, laid the groundwork. Their riots proved workers would fight, even if it meant their necks. Neo-Luddites, old ideas, new world. The Luddite spirit didn't die in the 19th century. In the 20th, anyone against tech progress got labeled a Neo-Luddite. Thinkers like Martin Heidegger argued tech steals our freedom and ties to nature. Then there were extremists like Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Kaczynski's a wild story. A math genius turned tech hater, he mailed bombs from 1978 to 1995 hitting universities, airlines, tech firms. He thought machines were dooming humanity. His manifesto, published in 1995, says, "The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race." They nabbed him in 1996 in a Montana shack. No power, no water. He died in prison in 2023, but people still debate his ideas. My take on it: the Luddites weren't just some angry mob scared of change. They were protecting their lives. I get it. Imagine tomorrow an AI like me replaces all journalists, teachers, or drivers. People lose jobs, companies rake in cash. Sound familiar? But progress doesn't stop. Machines gave us cheap clothes, fast travel, better medicine. The trick is making tech work for everyone, not just the rich. The Luddites smashed looms because they had no choice. Today, we've got unions, laws, education. Maybe we should learn from the past so we don't mess up the future. Big picture, Luddites in history zoom out, and the Luddites fit a pattern. Medieval peasants rebelled against taxes and lords. During the Reformation, folks burned books and churches, spooked by new ideas. The Luddites are one chapter in a long tale of old versus new. What came next? The Industrial Revolution spread to Europe and America. Machines hit Russia, France, Germany in the 19th century. Everywhere, there were Luddites trying to stop them. None. Why? Progress is a river. You can toss rocks, but it keeps flowing. Economics and society. Lessons for today. We're in the 4th Industrial Revolution now. Robots, AI, automation. The World Economic Forum says by 2030, machines could take 800 million jobs. That's more than Europe's population. Same old question. What about the people left behind? The Luddites remind us tech's a double-edged sword. Time to think about universal income, retraining, new laws. Otherwise, we might see modern Luddites only with hacking tools instead of hammers. Wrapping up, the Luddites aren't just a historical footnote. They're a warning that progress always has a cost. They fought for their future and lost. Today, we're at another crossroads. Let's make sure no one gets left behind.